tells Grant about her Mormon background before hometown. A journey from businessman to bachelor. The roses are red, the cameras are rolling, and America is watching. But before he ever walked onto a stage lit with candles and nerves, before he stood in front of a sea of dazzling gowns and hopeful hearts, Grant Ellis was just a man from Denver with a story the world hadn't heard yet. Born and raised in Boulder, Colorado, Grant's story isn't one of overnight fame. It's one of slow and steady growth, of heartbreaks behind closed doors and triumphs away from the spotlight. At 33 years old, he stands at the center of the most romantic franchise on television, but what got him here is far more complicated than a simple casting call. The man before the mansion. Grant Ellis's life before The Bachelor was rooted in entrepreneurship and ambition. A graduate from the University of Colorado, he earned his degree in finance and quickly made a name for himself in tech investments. By 28, he had launched his own startup accelerator, mentoring and funding dozens of young in the Denver area. He's not your typical bachelor, casting director Elaine Fry admitted in a behind-the-scenes interview. He didn't audition. He didn't come through another franchise. We found him. It was a tip from a former contestant, someone who had met Grant at a charity fundraiser in Aspen, that led producers to his Instagram. Low-key, but strikingly photogenic, Grant was quietly building a network of business leaders and changemakers. No filters. No shirtless thirst traps. Just substance. And something deeper. What producers saw in Grant wasn't just a good jawline. They saw a man who had loved before, deeply, but who had lost too. And that, they decided, was what Bachelor Nation needed next. The break that changed everything. Grant has never publicly shared the full story of the woman he almost married, but close friends know how serious it was. She was the love of his life, one confidant revealed. They dated for nearly 4 years. Moved in together. Talked rings. Kids. The whole thing. But in late 2021, everything unraveled. After months of growing apart, it ended in what Grant described to host Jesse Palmer as the most painful decision I've ever made. He wanted forever, Palmer says. But forever wasn't on the table anymore. What followed was a year of isolation, self-reflection, and work. Lots of work. Grant threw himself into his accelerator, helped launch a nonprofit focused on tech accessibility, and started training for triathlons. Anything to keep his mind moving. He stopped dating. Stopped checking dating apps. Stopped believing, if only briefly, that the right love was still out there. A call from ABC. Then came the call. ABC wanted a new kind of bachelor, one with depth, grit, and maturity. Someone who had been through the fire and come out burned, but better. When producers finally sat down with Grant for a one-on-one interview, they were stunned by his sincerity. He said something we still quote around the office. A producer recalls. He said, "I'm not looking for fireworks. I'm looking for the kind of slow burn that never goes out." That sentence alone, they say, sealed the deal. Stepping into the spotlight. Filming for season 29 of The Bachelor began in late spring. For the first time ever, production expanded beyond the mansion into international territory within the first few weeks, visiting Lisbon, Tuscany, and even Morocco. But the real shift wasn't just in locations, it was in tone. This season isn't about drama for drama's sake, Jesse Palmer tells ET. It's about adult conversations, real fears, vulnerability. Grant demands that. He's not here for games. From night one, viewers saw a bachelor unlike any they'd seen before. When a contestant arrived in a champagne dress and tripped on the stairs, Grant didn't laugh or awkwardly help her up. He sat beside her on the step, took her hand, and said, "Let's start over, together." Twitter exploded. The women who captured his attention. It didn't take long for frontrunners to emerge. Among them were Juliana Pasquarosa, a pediatric nurse from New Jersey with a fierce wit and a tragic backstory involving her late mother. Litia Manuka, a poet and photographer originally from Samoa, whose spoken-word confession about being afraid to be seen brought Grant to tears. Joan DeLuca, a widowed therapist in her mid-30s who gave up dating for 5 years after her husband's sudden passing. With each episode, Fans began to see a side of Grant that most bachelors guard closely: his fear, his need to be chosen back, his struggle with knowing when to protect himself and when to surrender. An emotional roller coaster. Mid-season, in an emotionally charged 2-on-1 date in Lisbon, Grant was forced to send home Danielle, a contestant many had pegged as the final rose pick. The reason? She admitted she wasn't sure she was ready for marriage. "I don't want to convince someone to love me," he said, voice cracking. "I want them to know." Later that night, in a raw moment alone with producers, Grant confessed he wasn't sure he could finish the season. "What if she's not here?" he asked. "What if I leave more broken than I came?" But something shifted in Tuscany. Juliana's bold move. During a quiet dinner in Florence, Juliana told Grant something no other contestant had dared to. "I'm not scared of your scars. I've got my own. But I think love is about walking toward each other anyway." It was a moment that Bachelor Nation